Sometimes I'm thinking about the powerful features of the ZV-E10, and I wonder to myself, do most ZV-E10 owners know this? I mean, I know this is a camera that is essentially for new users, vloggers, it's an entry-level camera, and some of its most powerful features, and one of the best things about it, I often think is probably not being accessed by most ZV-E10 owners. One of the most powerful things about this camera is the fact that it is an interchangeable lens camera, which basically means that you can transform your camera by changing lenses and putting a different lens on, a telephoto for sports and wildlife, or a wide angle for landscape. There's so many different options, but I think a lot of ZV-E10 owners, because they're on a budget, they buy it and they stick with the kit lens. And the kit lens itself is not terrible. In fact, it's amazing that it's so small and it's got great image stabilization, but actually the image quality isn't great. It's okay, mediocre, not terrible, but not wonderful. And really, to unlock the potential of this camera and get the most out of this camera, you do have to own other lenses and you have to put other lenses on it. The biggest problem with that is Sony lenses are pretty expensive. There's not a whole lot of cheap options out there for the Sony E-mount. And when I compare this to entry-level Canon cameras, like the M50 or any of the EFM mount cameras, all you need to do is get a little adapter and you can adapt sort of any EF lens, this huge library. In fact, the Canon EF lens library is the biggest library of lenses in the world. There are more EF lenses available than any other autofocus mount in the world. And if you buy one of Canon's entry-level cameras on any of the current mounts, you can actually use those lenses. Now, the Sony E-mount is much newer, which means that all the lenses are more modern. It means there's less of them. That means even on the used market, you're going to pay more for a comparable E-mount lens to a Canon EF mount lens. But what I've been thinking that maybe most Sony ZV-E10 owners don't know is that you can actually get an adapter that allows you to adapt most, I don't know if all, because I haven't tested all, but most EF lenses, or all the EF lenses I have tested so far, it allows you to use them on your Sony ZV-E10 and get native autofocus performance. So they just act like they're a Sony lens on your ZV-E10. And you can get that adapter for under $100. And as soon as you own the adapter, you've got access to all these incredible lenses. And this is one of Canon's most popular lenses. It's a 50mm f1.8. And if you take a photo with this lens compared to the kit lens shot at 50mm, I mean, it is not even close. The image is going to have a much more blurry background. It's going to look much better in low light. It really is an incredible lens. And you're going to be able to buy this lens used on eBay for, I think, probably $80, $90. You're going to be able to buy this lens new on Amazon for like around $160, which is really, really cheap. There's also this, what they call the Shorty 40. This is Canon's 40mm f2.8. This is a super sharp lens. This is a great compact lens. Honestly, it's just one of my favorite little lenses of all time. There really is nothing comparable to this at this price point on the Sony mount. So once again, by using this adapter, you're going to be able to use this just like it's a Sony lens. And the third one I'll mention here, and this isn't what I would call a cheap lens, and you wouldn't actually get this lens because it was cheap. This lens is the Sigma 18 to 35 f1.8 lens. At one point, Apple was selling cinema-grade camera kits in their store. They were selling a camera. It was a Red camera. Red was the name of the company. And it was like a $15,000 cinema kit. So if you were a new cinematographer, you could go in, you get the whole kit, you could go out, you could shoot a Netflix documentary, and the quality would be suitable for sort of broadcasting or putting on Netflix or showing in a movie theater, what have you. This is the lens that they actually sold in that kit. So this lens has actually been used to shoot Hollywood movies, documentaries, stuff you've seen on Netflix. You've seen tons and tons of movies and documentaries shot on this lens. You cannot get this lens as a native E-mount lens, but you can, with the adapter, basically turn your ZV-E10 into sort of a Netflix documentary camera. It's actually kind of insane. And the autofocus performance is just like a native lens. I think that is really, really important to state. You are going to get native autofocus performance with any of these lenses. And this is the adapter that I've been using. And It's an all metal adapter. As I said, it costs under $100. It has a polished metal mount, front and back. It actually has a port where you can update the firmware on the adapter. So if some new lenses come out that it's not compatible with, you can, the supplier can, or the manufacturer can update the firmware, and you just plug that into your computer and update your firmware. And now we'll just show you how this works. I'm just gonna take the ZV-E10 kit lens off. There's our little kit lens. I'm going to put the adapter on. And now I'm gonna turn our little ZV-E10 into a Netflix documentary shooting machine. There you go. Now it does have this little mount for the tripod, and so if you're using really, really heavy lenses, you can actually mount this on your tripod here. That way it's not putting the weight of the lens is not putting a huge stress on the mount of the camera itself. Now, if you're using smaller lenses, you can actually remove this, and this kit comes with an Allen key where you can take that off, and so you just have like a smooth round lens mount and you don't have this little foot sticking out. Because if I didn't have this big lens like this where it actually makes it sit quite nicely, the camera would be sort of sitting a bit funny. If you see, I'll put a little bit one of these smaller lenses on, and you'll just see how that looks. So you can see you wouldn't want it if you were using this tiny little lens, you would want to take that off. And so one of the biggest things you can do to transform your ownership experience of the ZV-E10 is add this little adapter. And I will put down below in the description down below the links to both the adapter and some of the lenses that I recommend. And if you're interested in turning your ZV-E10 into a portrait photography and cinematic video beast, I have just thrown a video on screen now. And the images you're gonna see in that video, honestly, I think they will blow you away.